I think you can forget on set with the time pressure. We're not there to like collect shots, right? We're there to respond to what's happening in front of us. The actors are going to give us something that we never expected. And as long as you've talked about that foundation of what the intention of the scene is, you can respond appropriately instead of just like, oh, well, then I guess we need dolly shot or something like that. You like understand like exactly what, oh, this is about Ellen's scene and her experiencing this moment, so like whatever that is going to change, we're going to try to get back to that. So even within my shot list, I have a column that's just about whatever creative notes we talked about. So irrespective of the shots. So you can always get back to that core, even if like whatever, you lose the location, actor wants to do something totally differently. You remember that when you look at that shot list, like, oh, it's about her experience. So for me, that's a great exercise. Like whenever you're scouting, is like try to do these photo boards and try to test out your ideas and see if they work. The way I approach films, no matter what genre it is the same, right? Even though I might arrive at a different look for each film versus like my last film's Hearts Beat Loud or this film, Sound of Silence. And it comes from character, character and story. I'm trying to find what is the way visually to kind of like illustrate what the character's experiencing and how to deliver the story that way. So, for instance, Hearts Beat Loud, we also shot with vintage lenses. We shot with Kawa sphericals. Frank in that film, played by Nick Offerman, owns a vinyl record store. It's a story about a connection with him and his daughter. And so, there's a richness there. There's like, it's about color, it's about warmth. And Sound of Silence is like the exact opposite. It's like, it's about a guy with like no connection to the world finding a connection. Whereas, Hearts Beat Loud is about a guy with a lot of connection in the world trying to maintain it, trying to like hold on to it, not almost too much. I remember that my approach to both feel very similar because it's always about like character, but like where you arrive can be so different because you're trying to really, because both characters in both films are so different. But I think, my intent is always to try to like find out visually what's within the story and how can I augment it, and bring out the emotions that I think are there. My name is Eric Lin. I'm a cinematographer based in New York. I was born in Lincoln, Nebraska. I grew up in California. My parents came over from Taiwan. Was always drawn to the arts. I think my parents were very indulgent with us, and we took oil painting classes, we did watercolor classes, and they always encouraged us to do the visual arts, even though I think once it came around time to decide, they were not happy about that. But all through high school, I did photography, and then in college, I was always making films with my friends, and just loved putting together stories, visual language. And in undergrad, I studied film criticism and sociology, but I was always like making films. I always wanted to go into production. So I applied to grad school at NYU for film production and got in and stayed in New York and have been making films since. The film I'm here at Sundance with is called The Sound of Silence. It stars Peter Sarsgaard and Rashida Jones. And Peter plays a house tuner in New York where he goes into people's homes and he'll adjust the frequencies of appliances within the house to influence the client's mood, right? If they're suffering from depression or insomnia or anxiety, he'll like tweak the refrigerator or the radiator and arrive at like a chord that will solve whatever that issue that they're experiencing. And Rashida Jones plays a client with a problem he can't solve. In the writing of it, it was very visual because it was talking about these moments in New York and how you experience sound, and I could immediately start to see images of how we would try to translate that, and I thought that was a great challenge as like someone who's obsessed with sound and how to bring that out visually, his obsession. And it was really well written and the characters are really well drawn, and so I wanted to meet Michael Tyberski, the director, and yeah, we talked and it worked out. Yeah, we tested all the vintage lenses that I thought could give us the look we wanted. Then we pretty much were settled on Alexa because that's what I've shot the most, and I knew it could handle. We were going to do a lot of underexposure, and I knew that that's where I wanted to go, and I knew that I could handle the kind of that level of exposure and still maintain like color fidelity really well. Yeah, and then we took that footage, tried a bunch of stuff in the test as much as we could, different lighting, different f-stops, seeing what the lenses did, the flares, what it did to contrast when you stopped down to f5.6, and then what happened when you opened it all the way up. Took it to Harbor Pictures. We had a great colorist, Roman Hankowitz. So we worked with him to design a LUT. That time was crucial. We only had like, 2 or 3 hours, but we were just sitting in there playing, like, what if we did this? What if we did that? What if we did that? We invite all of the departments to bring in whatever colors they're thinking, like art department, like whatever paints they're trying to, whatever the color palette we think it's gonna be, and costuming too. And yeah, so it's like seeing how all of that works together in front of the camera and then tweaking it and trying to like find like kind of a palette that, you know, the film exists in. Peter, the main character, is very obsessive about sound. And so, you know, we wanted to do a lot of things to try to enhance how that obsession isolated him. So that led to like kind of our tests, right? So we knew, you know, it always starts with story and character, and then that's like guiding my technical choices, you know. So I knew I wanted very shallow depth of field. So even when I'm testing these vintage lenses, I only tested lenses that could be wide open. Then with the color palette, you know, we knew we were going to limit the color palette of his world a lot. We wanted to exist in like this world of like gray, blues, and browns. And all of this was like guided towards the idea of like limiting, showing how like his obsessions kind of isolated him emotionally, you know, and also to enhance the idea of listening too. Like if we narrow like the visual information, like then hopefully like the audience is listening more. So, you know, talking about these ideas before we went into test is what kind of guided the test, you know. And then on set, we wanted a look that was very precise, but also analog, because the character Peter, he uses a lot of analog devices in his sound. He's like anti-electronics. He's using, you know, tape to tape. He's still recording on tape, but Peter's also the character is also very meticulous and precise. And so I thought the images should be that too. So we actually settled on ZEISS Super Speeds Mark IIIs, which were great because they were exactly that, very precise, but also had that vintage quality, analog quality that we wanted. And we went for already a cooler color palette, which I thought, you know, the Super Speeds, you know, kind of lent towards. And in terms of like shooting, our intent was always like kind of very restricted camera movement. You know, we have still frames where we didn't even move the camera. We just let Peter exist within the frame. Again, because we really want to show how he was like constrained by his like point of view and his obsession. Like he doesn't motivate the camera because his worldview is like so rigid. Shot very, very super shallow depth of field, again, to enhance that idea of listening, to have, you know, isolate him within the world. And then once the world, like, you know, it's all out of focus, you know, you really start to pay attention to the sound. The more experience I get, the more I want to test. You know, I'm trying to find a specific look or visual language for a film. I'm trying to find that right recipe. And it's not that I feel like I know what it is. I have instincts about what it might be, but I need to know if that's going to come together. You know, and I want to find that out before we start shooting. The LUT and the look is part of it. The lens choice is part of it. You know, the camera, like what ISO you rate it at, what, you know, contrast ratio, what lighting you're going to do. You know, these are all of the tools that we're doing to bring emotion to the screen, and we're trying to do that. I think the more experience I have, the more like, oh, I really want to try that out. Maybe that'll be a better way to do it, or that'll be a better way to do it. And so I love, you know, that's like one of my favorite parts of pre-production is testing and like trying to find that language. When you're younger, it's about trying to, you know, you're figuring out the tools, and I think technology is very important. I think it's, you know, it's a huge part of what we do. Cinematography is not about, you know, the numbers and the gadgets. It's about the emotion that you're getting on screen and what your voice is and how you achieve that. And I think it's, you know, you should try to shoot as much as you can in the hopes of really developing your own style and your own voice and discovering that. And I think, you know, we can always be excited about getting, you know, the next like hot gadget or not, next hot toy, but, you know, like Roger Deakins has always been an inspiration to me because he'll do, you know, like Revolutionary Road, there's a shot of them walking through the woods, right? And, you know, I think probably my instinct would have been, oh, you know, we need Steadicam, we need to put Steadicam on some sort of cart or something like that. He ended up using like a beach ball deflated on a go-kart or like a golf cart, you know, and it was like perfectly smooth, and it is just like pulling back through the woods. And it's like, you know, that creativity to achieve that shot is, you know, developed from that kind of instinct, and not like, oh, I know, you know, we got a movie, we can do, you know, we're gonna rig it this way and this way. It's like, you gotta think about what the purity of the shot is and how to achieve it in a way that, you know, is efficient and also can get that emotion across, you know. So I think it's like, you know, it definitely comes from experience, and, you know, initially you should shoot whatever you can to get used to that idea, but it's like really, you know, fine-tuning your voice and finding like what's exciting to you visually and like what kind of storytelling is exciting to you. And then I think you'll find that inspiration.